Oh, hey, you're up.
Am I in a dorm room?
Yeah, I folded your pants for you.
Great.
Dude, did you hit that or what?
Hey, you're up.
Look, I know this isn't gonna make any sense.
Stop global warming?
I feel like I'm losing my mind.
You sneaky little biatch. Happy birthday.
I've already lived through this day. Somebody's gonna kill me tonight.
Is everything okay?
Shut up! Shut up!
Assuming that I believe any of this is even possible.
Sprinklers. Car alarm.
The way I see it, you have unlimited amount of lives. Unlimited opportunities to solve your own murder.
So I'm supposed to keep dying until I figure out who my killer is?
You want to live to see tomorrow, right? Whoever's killing you knows it's your birthday.
Pretty much the entire school knows.
These are signs of major trauma. You should be dead.
You relive the same day over and over again. Kind of start to see who you really are.
Hi, this is Larry Zerner from Friday the 13th, Part 3, and you're listening to The Hysteria Continues.
And indeed you are. Welcome back to The Hysteria Continues, episode 283.
It's my birthday, and I ain't gotta pick up the phone.
And welcome back to The Hysteria Continues, episode 283.
It's my birthday, and I ain't gotta pick up the phone.
And welcome back to The Hysteria. Anyway, as you might have can tell from that very bad, well, it wasn't even a joke, was it, Erik?
Wouldn't be up to my standards now.
Not up to your standards. I'm looking forward to seeing what kind of time loop joke you have. But yes, we are covering Christopher Landon's Happy Death Day, the slasher version of Groundhog Day, allegedly. And Nathan, this was your pick, wasn't it?
Yes. Love this movie, so I'm very excited.
Excellent. And yes, well, it's good for us to cover some of the newer ones. Although this came out, was it 5 years ago, 6 years ago now? So time does fly, doesn't it?
Except for Tree in this film, time doesn't fly.
No, that is true. It's on a loop.
Mm.
Yeah. So
and there's nothing repetitive at all about Hysteria Continues.
Why?
What are you trying to say?
That's it.
Well, what would Alan Dale say about that, Erik?
He'd say, send forward this package on to Joseph or something.
Yes, we have arguably, we've been on a time loop for now how many years?
11, 12.
11, 12, yeah. So, yes, we are in our own little Happy Death Day, but we're happy to be here. So I hope you're happy to be listening. And welcome back. And Joseph, you're a big fan of the time loop movies, aren't you?
I am. There's a few I'm going to rattle off if you're interested later in the show. I love time loop films, especially time loop slashers. I think that's such a novel idea.
Yeah. And of course, this film got a sequel, which we'll probably discuss a little bit later. But before we get on to that, I know we've all seen a few newer movies. So should we have a quick chat about what we've been watching? Erik, I know you were a bit short of time, but you were going to try and catch up.
Yes, so I did
you
see
manage
them.
to?
Yes.
Okay.
So the first one I caught was Evil Dead Rise, which is, of course, Evil Dead 5. Yes, Evil Dead 5 is right. So this is getting a lot of attention over here in Ireland because the director, Lee Cronin, is from Dublin. And he directed his debut feature was 2019, a film called The Hole in the Ground, which was okay. It was nothing spectacular, but it got the attention of Sam Raimi and he was brought on board to do Evil Dead Rise. So I really loved Evil Dead Rise. It basically takes the Deadites and the demons, the Kandarian demons, and brings them into a kind of a apartment block in what city is it set in?
Is it Chicago? I'm not sure.
Somewhere. It doesn't really matter where it is because we don't really get to see the outdoors. We only get to see sort of a corridor, and the inside of an apartment is basically where the whole film is set. So I know that back in 2013 when Fede Alvarez did his reboot, Evil Dead reboot, Joseph and Nathan saw it first before we did, Justin, and they came back with reports that it wasn't great. So I went into that with low expectations, and I kind of liked when I saw it first in the cinema, but rewatches I found really difficult because that film is so grim and serious and sucks all the fun out of what was the essence, I thought, of the Evil Dead franchise. Whereas this one, it kind of instills it back in again. Now, it's not as goofy or overtly comic as Evil Dead 2 or Army of Darkness, so it's more on a par with probably the tone of the first film. So there's like lots of nastiness, but the demons in this are, the same sort of cackling, teasing, taunting type of demons that we got in the original trilogy. So yeah, there's plenty of gore. There's like, as I've always said, like the more realistic the gore, the more impact it probably has on the viewer. And there's one where somebody gets their calves rubbed with a cheese grater that really made me wince. Much more so than people having their eyeballs bitten out. So it's packed full of gore. It's got, a fairly likeable lead. I mean, the characters are kind of nondescript, as is par for the course with Evil Dead films. But yeah, I loved it. I thought, particularly the second half where it picks up a real head of steam, I thought, and it brought the fun back to the franchise, which I thought was very important, because if it went tonally along the same lines as the reboot, I would not have been that interested at all. So what did you caught it as well, Justin, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. It was played English language. We have the version original, which they play with Spanish subtitles, but original language. So yeah, it was very loud in the cinema, but I enjoyed it. I didn't know what to expect. So I can remember, I haven't seen the 2013 Evil Dead reboot since it first came out, but I can remember what you mentioned about it being quite grim. So I did like with Evil Dead Rise. It had because as people forget, not forget, but sometimes when people think back to the Evil Dead now, they forget actually how scary and ferocious and fearsome a reputation the film actually had, the original, when it came out, and it was actually kind of quite scary. And so humorous, but it was definitely a kind of a more of a darker edge to it. And obviously everyone loves the Evil Dead 2, but it definitely ups that kind of goofy sort of a kind of Three Stooges style humor, which obviously Sam Raimi loves. So I kind of liked that this had a mixture of that. I saw the nod to the infamous eyeball flying in the mouth scene from Evil Dead 2 in here. So it was quite playful. And I wouldn't say it was as scary as I found the original Evil Dead when I first saw it, but it had some kind of creepy moments. And the gore was plentiful. I mean, it was fairly unbelievable, I kind of guess. This idea, this family's living in this condemned apartment block, and it happens to have this kind of cursed bank underneath, which suddenly opens up because of an earthquake. But having said that, if you park your logical part of your brain and just go with it, I thought it was a fun ride. It also clearly opens it up as a kind of a trilogy starter or the start of a new franchise. And given what I've seen here, I definitely would like to check out where it goes next. I thought it was there's always something that kind of weird when watching films like this, and I thought, I don't know, there was something off about it. I don't mean off in a kind of good way. This felt a bit strange, and obviously something like Evil Dead is going to be quite strange. But then I realised, I think it was all of the actors in it were Australian, so obviously it was shot in Australia.
No, it was shot in New Zealand actually, but the actors are Australian though. Yeah.
So yeah, that would that gave it a little bit of a kind of weird, not weird twist, but kind of slightly, something gives it slight off, but like in a good way. When you're watching a film like this, it and then of course finding out the director is from Dublin, then that.
Yeah, it kind of reminded me of a less high octane Demons 2, I suppose, with the possessed people in an apartment block. Not as insane as Demons 2.
I could have done with it being not as dark as it was.
Visually dark.
Yeah, I mean, it was just kind of it was probably one of the darkest films I've ever seen. I think, I know they're in the middle of a power cut, but someone could have lit a few more candles.
Yeah. Mm.
Yeah. So,
Joseph, did you see it?
No, I didn't get a chance to watch it yet.
Okay. Nathan?
Not yet, but I can't wait.
Cool. Well, we won't give any spoilers there. So, anything else, Erik?
Yeah, I finally caught Scream 6 as well, which I quite liked, yeah. I thought the reveal of who's behind the mayhem this time felt kind of ho-hum, whereas in the past it was like, oh, I never would have suspected them. And this one, it just felt kind of, oh, been there, done that. But overall, I thought the film was pretty strong, pretty fun. I can't remember a huge amount about it, even though I only watched it like 2 days ago. But yeah, I mean, as I was watching it, I was watching a 2D version, and it did get a release in 3D in certain cinemas when it was released theatrically back in January, and I kept wondering how it would look in 3D. I don't think there's anything terribly three-dimensional about any of the shots in the film, but I would love if they released a 3D Blu-ray, but I don't think that's ever going to happen. Yeah, so I thought it was good. It's the first kind of one I've enjoyed on a first watch since probably Scream 2. Scream 3, 4, and 5 all took a second viewing for me to appreciate them a bit more. Yes, that's all I can say. Is, I mean, I like those two new leads we have in the film. I could, like, you know, I personally didn't miss Neve Campbell, whatever way it's pronounced. But did you get a chance to see that one, Justin, yet?
I did, yeah, and I enjoyed it more than the last one. I think it was kind of, I don't know, the kind of return to Woodsboro was okay in part 5, but I kind of felt that at this point in the franchise, it kind of needed something a bit fresh, and that going to New York definitely gave it that. And I could see how it would work really well in 3D, especially the probably the best sequence in the movie is the ladder across between the two apartment buildings, and I could imagine that would work really well in 3D. But it's a real difficulty when it gets to this point in the franchise, because when you've got a film that works because of its kind of simplicity, and Scream was never really that simple a concept, a high concept movie. But it's kind of, when you add more and more layers and characters and things on top of it, it does risk becoming slightly oversaturated and a bit turning to white noise. Having said that, I thought it was an improvement on part 5. I know it's sacrilege, and I like Neve Campbell's character in Scream and Scream 2, but after Scream, from Scream 3 onwards, I always felt that she was only really there for a paycheck. I never got the impression that she was professional at what she did, but in the last one, she, you know, could quite easily have not had her in Scream 5. So I couldn't really get all these people going, so they're going to boycott Scream 6 because Neve Campbell wasn't in it. And I was just thinking, I think she might give it some more guts. So when she comes back for part 6, which I'm sure she will do.
Part 7.
Part 7, sorry, yeah, part 7.
Is she coming back for part 7? Yeah.
Well, I think if the paycheck's big enough, she will. I mean, I think, all power to her to turn around and say, no, you're not paying me enough, because, she knows her value, and it's borne out with the 100+ million domestic grosses of the last couple of movies, isn't it? So
yeah, but this one superseded them, and it doesn't have her in it, so well, I don't think she's got a bargaining chip, really.
Although, having said that, I think Scream 6, like Megan and some of the Smile and some of those other recent horror movies, had like really stellar media campaigns behind them, especially social media campaigns, and they've kind of really amped up the anticipation for them. So I think they did a really good job with Scream 6. Whether or not it was, like you say, the revelation of the killers, I think at this point it becomes, what kind of sort of social holy cow can they pin dysfunction on this time. So yeah, it's kind of, I had fun with it, but I'd be interested to see. It didn't go where I was thinking it was going to go, the cult of serial killers, which is kind of, I think is what the original idea for a Scream sequel was going to have, this whole kind of cult of Ghostface, which I think Kevin Williamson used for The Following with Kevin Bacon, the TV series later. So it looked like that is going to go that way in the trailer, but it didn't. Spoiler alert. But what about you, Joseph? Have you had a chance to rewatch Scream? I know you were quite enthusiastic about it last time.
Yeah, I rewatched Scream 6 when it hit Paramount Plus, and I didn't enjoy it as much the second time around. I mean, I still like it, but my problem with it is that, I don't know, it's so so poorly written, like in the dialogue. It's so cringy and melodramatic. And yeah, I love the stuff with the killer's reveal and how absolutely ridiculous it is, but I think even this one takes the cake a little bit. I mean, I love the set pieces, don't get me wrong, but I don't know. I just felt like this was almost as haphazard as the previous film. I think it's really missing that Wes Craven touch, and I don't think they're ever going to, get that back. I mean, there's no way they can get that back. And I think the directors here, they do, an admirable enough job, but it's just really missing Wes Craven and Kevin Williamson for my taste.
No, well, fair enough. What about you, Nathan? What were your thoughts? Have you rewatched it?
I haven't rewatched it, but I mean, just still based on my first thoughts is that I loved it. I thought it was fantastic. So I need to rewatch it, and I will. But yeah, I mean, I loved it.
Excellent. Okay. Well, thank you. And Erik, anything else?
No, that's it.
Nathan, how about you? Have you seen anything else you want to tell us about?
Let's see. The only thing I can think of recently is I rewatched the Exorcist spoof Repossessed from the 80s with Leslie Nielsen. And I thought it was a very fun spoof. It's very ridiculous, as you would imagine. And Leslie Nielsen's just hilarious in, the movies that he's done. I mean, the jokes, like, for a spoof movie like this, of course, are hit and miss. But I loved like Ned Beatty and the actress that played his wife. They played Ernest and Fanny, which is like a televangelist couple, and they want to televise the exorcism. I think one thing that I loved, and this made me think of Erik, is that because the movie is, I think it's rated PG-13. Like when the devil is possessing, like it's almost like me if I was like possessing someone, because the devil says stuff like, "I can't stand your mother."
It's polite. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like polite. It's kind of the devil being more polite, I would say. But yeah, I'm a fan of it. I think it's a really funny movie. So yeah, have you guys seen it?
I tried to rewatch. I saw it when it came out in video in 1990, whenever it was, and then I tried to rewatch it maybe 5 years ago, and I didn't like it. I'm afraid, Nathan, it didn't work for me at all.
Well, there wasn't any cussing.
No, yeah, maybe that's why. Justin?
No, I'm aware of it, but it kind of passed me by.
Okay.
And Joseph, did you have the pleasure?
Yeah, I saw it when it came out in the early 90s. I don't remember liking it all that much. I think there's a certain art to a Leslie Nielsen film, and I think he needs the right writer and director. The one thing I can remember about Repossessed is my younger brother used to sing the theme song over and over and over again because he loved the film, and that may have turned me off from it. But yeah, I haven't seen it since like 90 or 91.
Oh, what's this theme song?
I was minding my business when the devil walked in on me. He was waving his hands out saying, "Come on, just follow me." Though I looked him in the eye and I showed him to the door. And I told him to get lost because I've been there once before. Don't want to be repossessed.
That's it, yes.
Very good.
Oh my goodness.
So, well, thank you, Nathan. Anything else?
No, the only thing I watched, which we've already covered, is I rewatched Chopping Mall, and my opinion on it still stands. It is incredible.
Well, thank you, Nathan. And Joseph, has anything you've seen?
I'm trying to think. I really haven't been watching a whole lot of. Yeah, I saw the first season of that TV show From. Have you heard of that? It's by some of the people behind Lost, and it also stars Harold Perrineau from Lost, and he was also in Oz. It's basically about this small town. These people like if they drive into it, they can't leave it. And at night, these they look human, but they have these kind of the movie Smile, where they smile at you. They kind of have that smile, and they're kind of, I guess they're demons of some kind. They haven't really explained it yet, but it's a big mystery horror show. It's pretty good. It's 10 episodes. They're like an hour long each. So, they're like 45 minutes long each, but it's very entertaining. It's very tense. There's some really well done suspense scenes, and I like the characters. I think these characters actually do things that you're supposed to do in a weird situation, so they're not just kind of doing stupid things to prolong the mystery. I don't know how long they can prolong this particular mystery, but I really did enjoy the first season, and I was quite shocked at how, thrilling it could be at times. So if you've not heard of it, I think it's streaming on MGM Plus, or it used to be Epix, but it's now MGM Plus. It's called From. It's a horror TV show. It's pretty good.
Okay, I have heard of it, but I've not seen it. So thank you for the recommend. I know, Erik, you wouldn't have seen it because you didn't watch much TV.
But I do sound that I do like the sound of the premise. So yeah.
Cool. And Nathan, have you seen that?
No, I don't think I've heard of it.
Okay, well, one to watch out for. And so for me, just one thing we haven't covered, I caught up with Renfield, which is the Nicolas Cage's Count Dracula movie, and Nicholas Hoult as the title character Renfield. I didn't know what to expect with this. Obviously, with Nicolas Cage movies in the last, 15, 20 years, you kind of know more often than not what you're going to get. And obviously, I'm kind of a fan of Nicolas Cage going over the top. In this, it's kind of interesting because the whole movie is more over the top than Nicolas Cage in some ways. He's still pretty over the top, but he plays Dracula as a kind of... he's kind of a slightly weird mix. It works really well. He's actually almost a bit scary in it, which is kind of unusual for a Dracula movie these days. But the central premise is that that Renfield and Dracula have been locked together over the last 100 or so years, and on this kind of cycle of him, Renfield, procuring victims for Dracula. So it takes place in the kind of modern day. And they do this really clever thing that the Todd Browning Dracula from 1931, was it? They kind of use Nicholas Hoult and Nicolas Cage's heads. They superimpose them on the Renfield and the Bela Lugosi character as Dracula, almost seamlessly, and it works really well. But the thing that's kind of makes it fun is it's kind of like a cross between almost like the Evil Dead Rises and John Wick. It's kind of more an action movie than it is a horror movie, I kind of guess. But the gore is so completely over the top, with people's limbs being pulled off and people being impaled on said limbs and heads flying off and all sorts of things going on. That it's actually kind of a good gory time. So if you wanted a kind of a horror John Wick with Nicolas Cage going gonzo's Count Dracula, then you could do a lot worse. So yeah, I had a lot of fun with it. So if that sort of, if that kind of description floats your boat, then I think you probably would enjoy it.
It floats my boat.
Sounds like it'll float my boat as well.
Yeah, there's not a dull moment in it. It's very over the top, very silly. It's almost like a Hong Kong action movie, which of course is kind of what John Wick is in a lot of ways. But it's just kind of non-stop kind of like fight sequences, slow-mo, heads flying off, arms being ripped off, and Nicolas Cage turning into a bat at every conceivable moment. So, yeah, a lot of fun. So, talking of a lot of fun, let's see if we had a lot of fun with Nathan's pick. So, what have we got? Have we got a trailer, TV spot?
We have a TV spot.
Cool. Okay. So, after this, Nathan, you'll bring us back in with Happy Death Day.
Happy Death Day.
Happy birthday. Don't be too late. The party's tonight. Happy birthday.
I'm totally having deja vu. I have already lived through this day.
Whoever's killing you knows it's your birthday.
So I keep dying until I find out who's killing me.
It's your turn to die.
Happy Death Day. Rated PG-13.
A college student must relive the day of her murder over and over again in a loop that will end only when she discovers her killer's identity. And that's your basic plot line for Happy Death Day. Now, I will say right off the bat, I love time loop movies. Like I love Groundhog Day. There was a Christmas movie, like a family movie they did called Christmas Every Day. I love that one. There's a lot of movies that do kind of the time loop idea, and I mean, I really can't think of any that I just flat out didn't like, just because I think it's such a fun idea. And to me, doing this to a slasher movie is even more a great idea. The lead actress, Jessica Roth, playing the character of Tree, I think she does an incredible job in this movie. And she's got like a lot of like great scenes, like comedy ones, you know, and of course, you know, the horror. And I kind of agree with Eric. You know, he had mentioned that the movie is a little light on horror, and, you know, it probably is. It's kind of what I would call a safe horror movie. For maybe people that don't really like scary movies would probably like this one. I did not guess the killer correctly because I am terrible at that. So, you know, I mean,
wow.
I know, because all the clues were there when I rewatched it, but like I totally did not know who the killer was. So that's how bad I am at guessing the killer.
I don't think I guessed the killer either, Nathan, when I watched it first. But like you, rewatching it, it seems kind of obvious. But hey ho, that's me.
But I love just little instances in the movie. Like there's a scene where like Tree is getting chased by the serial killer in the hospital, and she ends up in a bell tower. And I'm like, this is some hospital. I just love that there's this bell tower in the hospital. I think that's amazing. But yeah, one thing I've always liked about this one is that when the movie starts, you know, the main character Tree is really an unlikable character. Like you probably would expect her to be like just part of the body count in any other slasher movie. But I like that the movie gives her an arc, and like over the course of the film, you know, she actually realizes that's not the person she wants to be. And I kind of like, you know, seeing, you know, her, you know, character kind of change. And then of course, by the end of the film, just being a totally different person. I think that's a lot of fun too. The movie has some really cool shots in it. I really love the scene where she gets hit with the baseball bat, and like it just kind of cuts back in a really interesting way to when she wakes up again from her death. It's hard for me to explain because I can't explain stuff very well. The final fight in the movie, I think, is just it's great. I love the I love the fact that it takes place. Spoiler alert, everyone. But I love the fact that it basically takes place like in a bedroom of a sorority house in broad daylight. It's just it's a fun way to end the movie, because it's not exactly what I would have expected from like the final battle in the film. So yeah, I thought that was great. I love the scene where she actually wants the cop to arrest her. I thought that was a lot of fun too. Oh, and I have to mention, I love the character of Danielle. I think she's great. She's just your typical like kind of mean girl kind of character, but she's a lot of fun. There's a scene towards the end where some of the girls are crying over what they just witnessed, which was a dead body hitting the ground, and Danielle turns around, she's like, "Excuse me, I'm being interviewed here." And I just love little things like that. I think it's fun. But yeah, Happy Death Day is probably one of my favorite movies of all time, just because I think it's that great. And I am very, very curious to hear what your guys' thoughts are, because I know you've all seen it once, so this will be like a rewatch for you. So, Eric, how did this rewatch treat you?
Very, very well, because I can rewatch this on a loop, ironically enough. And this to me is one of the best horror films of recent years. I just absolutely love it. I think it's probably Blumhouse's best film, in my opinion. As you said, I think the horror elements aren't really that horrific, and you know the film is quite bloodless, but it's got such an abundance of riches in other areas that it doesn't need to be the most suspenseful or the most graphic slasher movie. As you said, I love the characters. You know, I love the way Tree goes from snarky sorority girl to this truly likable kind of final girl over the course of the movie, and she's backed by the likable love interest of Carter and that gaggle of sorority sisters who are often hilarious. And you were mentioning Danielle, and I love when she's been interviewed and she says that she twigged something was wrong with the killer, who we won't spoil yet, because they wore Crocs, which is a sign of madness. I thought the film was just really funny in places. There's a lot of sort of campus hijinks, and has a few moments of real pathos as well, particularly in towards the final reel in that. I do think maybe really hardcore horror fans may find it a bit too light, but but it's this kind of popcorn approach that I really like, and it's what really works for me. And like Joseph, I also love time loop movies, and this does borrow heavily from Groundhog Day, and they even name check it at the end, sort of, they know that they're borrowing heavily from Groundhog Day. But to me, this is vastly superior to Groundhog Day because, gasp, yes, I know, I'm not a fan of Bill Murray. I don't think he's funny. Sorry. Another time loop movie that came out around this time that's also brilliant is Edge of Tomorrow, which is the Tom Cruise one, which does a similar thing to this, except it's an alien invasion instead of a slasher movie. I love the way they have tampered with the Universal logo at the start of the film as well, where it keeps resetting. Well, it resets 3 times, playing into the theme of the movie. Jessica Roth, as you said, Nathan, she's a real standout in the film. She should be unlikable at the start, and she probably is kind of unlikable for that first maybe 10 minutes, but you really end up rooting for her, and her backstory, when we learn about it later in the film, gives the film a real heart, which is something that's really expanded on the sequel as well. That scene in the diner with Carter, which starts with her belching and passing wind. That scene quickly turns really poignant when she remarks about how reliving the same day has made her learn more about herself and how she feels she's not a good person, and how her late mother would not be proud of her. So I thought that was just a lovely touch, but I'm a big softie, as you know. It has these saccharine elements that I love, that I'm sure maybe people who are into their extreme horror probably roll their eyes at, but I love the film for it's fun. I mean, its sole purpose is to entertain and to kind of uplift, and I think it does that brilliantly. So it's probably not a brilliant horror film, but it's a brilliant film in my opinion, and I love its sci-fi twist, its Twilight Zone elements, and its likable characters. And to me, this is exactly the type of mainstream horror film that I love, much more than something like the overhyped Barbarian. So it was very much along the lines of something like Megan that came out recently, light and horror, leaning into sci-fi, popcorn horror. I also love that A Cupcake is one of the central elements of the storyline, which is possibly a cinematic first, but this is like breezy in the best possible way. It's just a bundle of fun and joy, and I absolutely love it. And as I said, it's one of my favourite films of the last 10 years, if not longer. So thank you, Nathan.
Oh, you're welcome. What do you think of it, Joseph?
Yeah, I hadn't seen Happy Death Day but once, and that was when it first came out, so I remembered very little about it, and this may as well have been the first time watch with all that considered. So, yeah, I really enjoyed it, even though I had a few minor gripes with it. To get the bad stuff out of the way, I found the identity of the killer way too telegraphed from the get-go, and that whole Chekhov's cupcake was such a screamingly obvious setup that I just kept waiting and waiting for the wheels to start turning in Tree's head. It takes a little while for her to kind of catch on. I also found the red herring with the serial killer at the hospital. I found that kind of subplot wholly unnecessary to the overall story arc, and it really felt like they had the gears in motion for kind of a leaner, meaner slasher movie, but realized that their story fell just a little short of being the standard feature-length runtime, and decided to, use that kind of subplot to pad out the runtime. But I think the beauty of the film in full really comes from the development of the Tree character, who begins the story doing her own kind of spin on Bill Murray's cynical jerk character from Groundhog Day. And then she blossoms into a warm-hearted, kind of altruistic individual as the plot thickens. And Jessica Roth really commits to the character with so much vigor that you nearly forget by the film's end that she was such an unlikable little shoulder chip for over half the runtime. She also gets fine support from a cast of characters who don't really have the opportunity to grow like she does, but they remain watchable and mostly likable without much in the way of development. The slasher stuff, it feels at first like it's just going to be variations on her death for the entirety of the film, but I like that she changes each time loop iteration enough to where eventually various individuals start getting caught up in the murders, and while they're not extravagantly filmed or anything, I think they function a few steps above the norm for a studio picture that mostly just wants to be bubbly, like Erik said. So, yeah, I mean, it takes a few missteps in my opinion, but ultimately I think it saves itself by being so zippy and fun that the damage done, if there is any damage, is kind of negligible at best. And, while I was kind of underwhelmed with the killer's identity and the motive, I kind of had to chuckle at their steadfastness in doing away with the tree character. I mean, first they're trying to simply poison her with sweets, and when that doesn't work, they slide rule down the DEFCON level to concocting a full-on madcap slasher movie scenario, which frankly seems like going from first to fifth gear in the escalation department. But hey, that's pretty much how the film operates, and I'm happy for it. So yeah, I mean, I felt the script needed maybe one more tweak before going in front of the cameras, but I think it gets close enough for classic status for me. So yeah, thumbs up for me. I liked Happy Death Day. I haven't seen the sequel, or if I have, I don't remember it, but I'm kind of looking forward to checking it out.
The sequel is leans more into sci-fi and alternate universes and stuff.
But I loved it. It's fun.
Yeah, Erik mentioned Edge of Tomorrow, which I don't think I've seen that one yet.
Brilliant. And, I love it.
Yeah, a couple other ones I wanted to mention. There's one from 1993, which predated Groundhog Day by, I guess, maybe a year or so. It's called 1201. It's got Jonathan Silverman. Yeah, Jonathan Silverman from Weekend at Bernie's. He plays a guy who's basically having the worst day of his life. And one of the more recent ones, I think it came out around the same time as Happy Death Day. It's called Arq. ARQ. It's a Netflix original. It's one of the best time loop movies I've ever seen. What they do with the plot point of the time loop in that film is just incredible. It really matches the energy of Happy Death Day. So if you haven't seen Arq, I really recommend that one. And I, of course, recommend Happy Death Day.
Justin.
Yeah, no, I think it's probably more or less raves across the board. I really enjoy this film. I've seen it a number of times. It's one of those films that was kind of a bit of a go-to to show people who may not be kind of completely au fait with horror. I mean, interestingly, without getting into too much background, I did read that it was originally meant to be be like a gorier movie. So a bit like we talked about, Erik was talking about Megan and how that was released as a watered down version with, that was kind of post-cut, whereas I think this was kind of pre-cut in so much that the script for this originally was going to be for an R-rated horror movie with lots of gory deaths, so kind of obviously playing on the whole Friday the 13th tropes and, creative deaths of slasher movies of yore. But it was reworked to be kind of lighter on the gore. So it's arguable whether or not that works in its favour. It certainly is a frothier, more fun kind of film, which almost kind of harks back to some kind of like madcap screwball comedies of the 30s or something. It's got that kind of bubbly feel to it, even though you've got some dying day after day. It never seems to take its tale too seriously or have much in the way of kind of a kind of gravitas in so much. Not as a bad thing, but it doesn't become morbid, put it that way. And also, I think the Jessica Roth character is, with a tree gelb, is it Gelbman? Is that kind of that character arc again? Because it reminded me of those kind of 30s screwball comedies, she plays it perfectly and carries the whole movie on her shoulders. I think her performance kind of really makes the movie. If it had a lesser sort of actress in the role, I think it wouldn't have worked as well. So yeah, I think it was just like a lot of fun. It didn't take itself too seriously. It moved a kind of quite a clip. And I think the idea of a kind of a time loop slasher movie, I'm surprised it hadn't really been done before. Although arguably, I kind of guess there had been Triangle, hadn't there, which kind of was kind of like more of a time loop slasher movie. And Time Crimes, arguably. I don't know, Joseph, could you shoehorn that into the slasher movie territory?
Well, I mean, I reviewed it for your site. It has slight elements, but thinking back on it, I don't think it's more of I think it's more of a sci-fi film, but I don't really consider that a time loop movie in this sense, because he's not really repeating the same day. He's just repeating portions of the same day and then looping back on himself. But yeah, I get the gist of what you're saying, yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of, also, of course, we're all kind of fans of those campus slashers, and we covered Final Exam on our recent fan commentary. This kind of felt like more of a kind of a love child of something like Scream 2, where you've got the kind of ditzy sorority sisters, the bitchy sorority sisters, or a film along the lines of, say, the remake of House on Sorority Row, aka Sorority Row, where you have that knowingness to it. But it's done so kind of deftly and such a lightness of touch that another film it reminded me of. It's another slasher movie that had heart, which is something you don't really find in modern slasher movies, is The Final Girls. It has a kind of surprisingly affecting emotional touch to it as well. So yeah, I think it's fantastic. I haven't seen, like Joseph, I have seen the sequel, Happy Death Day to You, and I don't remember a huge amount about it, but the fact that it obviously, apart from it was, it kind of went more into that multiverse sort of style thing. But yeah, no, I think as a standalone film, it works really well. I really enjoyed it, so I'm glad you brought it back to the fore, Nathan.
Well, I'm going to spoil, as we always do. But as we all know, the killer in the end turns out to be her roommate, Lori. I kind of like the whole idea that the cupcake is such a big, important deal. And I do love, because I know, I can't remember who mentioned it, but about Danielle and the talking about in her interview that the killer wore Crocs.
Yeah.
I also love that she goes, and Lori's plan was really lame. Poisoning a cupcake, like her character, was a lot of fun. She's even more fun in part 2, I think. But yeah, the movie itself I find to be, like Erik said, it's breezy, it's fun, it's just a good time. I mean, like, it's definitely the kind of movie I could watch again and again and again, and I have. So is there anything else that you guys want to say about it before we move into some background?
I think we've kind of covered it, but maybe some bits come to light with backgrounds, perhaps.
Let's see. So I've got a few little bits and pieces. I didn't do a lot of background. Don't say nothing, Justin. I didn't do a lot of background because this is a very popular movie. So, I mean, it's...
But what's your excuse for a non-popular one, then?
I do background, but then you go, it's IMDb.
Now, sometimes he accuses you of it being Wikipedia.
Yes, that's true.
And I do use it as well. But I did watch the alternate ending.
There's an alternate ending?
There is, and you're going to have issues with it, Nathan. I know you are.
I would have had issues with it, but the fact that they made a sequel, I think, would have righted the wrong. But in the alternate ending, after the fight in the bedroom, Tree is taken to the hospital, and a nurse comes into the room and is being very, like, ominous. And then she ends up taking off her mask, and it's Gregory's wife. And she's like, did you really think I'd let you get away with, like, having sex with my husband? And then she, like, injects this stuff into Tree's IV and basically kills her. But the vibe I got from that ending was something very much along the lines of, like, she's still not really dead. Like, it's probably just going to start repeating again or something. Because Tree's reaction when she's about to die was just, you got to be kidding me. And then she's out again. But I will say, I don't know that ending would have worked. I mean, it didn't, because test audiences who watched it didn't like the ending, so they changed it.
Well, I didn't like that ending, and I would have had a Alice dies in part 2 type of hissy fit like you, Nathan, if they'd gone with that ending.
Well, I mean, and to me, I think the only reason I would have been okay with it is probably in hindsight because I know there's a sequel. But if there wasn't a sequel and it was standalone, then yeah, I probably would have had issues with that ending, because I'm like, she went through enough. She went through enough punishment. You know, we can give her a break, I should say. The scene where she walks naked through the quad was actually real, because the actress did that whole scene nude, and they didn't. Yeah, I mean, and it's interesting that she did, because, you know, they don't show anything really, like they don't show any nudity. Unless you count a back.
Well, you can see the top of her arse.
Yeah, you can see the top of the lower region.
The lower regions.
Well, I almost said arse, like with the R, but then I was like, that's not how I usually say it.
Well, Nathan, we do have to work on your English pronunciation if you're ever going to meet the king.
What's my pronunciation? What's bad about it?
Well, no, if you want to be, you know, if you work in your English, as in, like, pronunciation, you've got to start saying arse.
And well, I will say I don't want to, be offensive to anyone or anything like that, but I did catch a few glimpses of the king thing.
Coronation.
I thought you meant Charles. I thought when you said king thing, I thought you meant Charles. I thought you're not going to get a knighthood now.
No, I watched a little bit of that, but it seemed really long. I guess for me, I probably would have edited it.
It was going out live.
Oh, well, I probably would have shortened some stuff.
Yeah.
But I'm careful about what I say because I think that it may be offensive.
No, I'm not. I'm very ambivalent about the royal family, but I know Nathan was holding out after poor Queenie passed away without him being knighted. So I just thought to up your chances, Nathan, we need to work on your, get a couple of plums in your mouth.
Back on topic, the original mask was going to be a pig mask, which I think is interesting, but I'm glad they kind of went with what they did because, Saw kind of did the pig mask. But the mask was constructed by Tony Gardner, who also made the ghost face mask. So there you go. I think that's pretty awesome. And I'm sure any fans of 80s, movies will know that, close to the end of the film where they think they defeated the evil, that scene with them sitting by the window with the cupcake in the middle is right from Sweet 16. Or I'm sorry, 16 Candles, not Sweet 16.
Oh, yeah. 16 Candles. Yeah.
Yeah, different movies there. But yeah, I think that's pretty much what I had that I found pretty interesting. What do you guys have? Who wants to go next?
I have a few things.
Okay, cool.
To add to that, the original script was called Half to Death, and it was written by a comic book writer called Scott Lobdell, who had written a lot of comic books like X-Men and Fantastic Four, and his other screenwriting credits include 2019's Critters Attack, which I haven't seen yet. It was filmed in New Orleans. The original ending you've mentioned. It grossed 125 million worldwide on a production budget of 4.8 million, which is very cheap, really. Rudy Modine, who plays Laurie, the killer, she's the daughter of Matthew Modine, and she's also a singer. And another person with a celebrity parent is director Christopher Landon, who's the son of Michael Landon from Little House on the Prairie and Highway to Heaven. And Christopher Landon's other credits include he was the writer of Paranormal Activities 2, 3, 4, 5, and 7. Not sure what happened with 1 and 6. And his other directorial outings include Freaky, which was out a few years ago, Scout's Guide to the Zombie Apocalypse, and most recently, and I haven't seen this yet, We Have a Ghost. Has anyone seen that?
I've seen it on Netflix. I just haven't watched it.
And there was legal issues apparently with that mask, Nathan, you were mentioning, because it's identical to the mascot of the New Orleans Pelicans basketball team. So they sued Blumhouse and Universal Pictures for copyright infringement.
Okay. Did you have anything else, Erik?
No, that's it. Do you have anything?
Well, I'll see if Joseph's got anything first. I've got a few reviews from that time.
I don't have anything, so go ahead.
Okay. Well, I just pulled up some reviews from when the film came out. I was surprised, actually. It got kind of ho-hum reviews across the board, which was surprising. The Californian was very nonplussed with it, called it a tiresome, gory thriller. Which
gory?
Well, exactly, yeah. But they always
they always say that, yeah.
And it said that which I disagree completely. It says that the film's biggest problem is with its time loop conceit, and it says it robs the film of suspense, which I don't really understand because it kind of doesn't, does it? Because you get little vignettes of suspense, like all the chase scenes and stuff throughout it, and the suspense is kind of like, how's she going to die? Having said that, the Courier Post called it derivative goofy fun. The Leader Post said it had limited fun with Groundhog Day repetition. But the Herald said it's a smart take on the horror genre. So it was a bit of a mixed bag there, which I was surprised by. I thought it was going to be, would have been more of a hit with the critics than it was. But the proof was in the pudding. It did say make a lot of money. Now, talking of sequels, there obviously was a sequel. Wasn't there talk of a second sequel at some point that didn't happen?
I think there was they made a joking reference to doing like a trilogy. But I mean,
Right.
After watching the second one, and maybe you can back me up on this, Erik, I just don't know where they could go.
Yeah, because the sequel does do something different, in fairness. As I said, it's more to do with parallel dimensions and stuff and multiverse than it is with time loops. So they'd have to come up with another time-space issue for the third one, I'm sure.
I mean, what did we think of Freaky? Which was was it directed by him as well?
Yeah,
Christopher Landon.
yeah.
It was, wasn't it?
It was okay. Yeah, it was body swap movie, wasn't it?
Body swap.
Yeah.
So it was kind of like Freaky Friday. I think wasn't it originally called Freaky Friday the 13th?
I think that was just a rumor that was going around. I don't think it was actually official.
Okay. But it kind of that was the play on that. But but yeah, I don't have anything else to add because you read everything else that I saw on IMDb.
You guys know that I'm not fast with my comebacks, but you know what? I'm going to work on a comeback, and it's going to sting.
Ooh, okay.
I've done a lot of coming on backs.
Joseph, this is a G-rated podcast.
Yeah, Joseph.
Yeah, right. Come on.
Well, let's draw a discreet veil over that, shall we? But what was the consensus on the group, Joseph?
25 comments for Happy Death Day. So. Derek Taylor says, I love this movie. Tree is an exceptional character who gets to grow. The bitch character, that's Danielle, is great. I love the entire cast. The crawl little girl part is creepy. Even the outlandish sequel is fun. Highly recommended. And Heathen 73 feels differently. Much differently. Absolutely despise it. Childish, dull, and moronic, and the sequel is one of the most pathetic films I've ever seen. I loathed it and gave the disc away. Didn't want it in my home. Absolute pap. Wow.
Ooh. Wow.
He did not like this movie.
Yeah, that's some hatred.
Yeah.
That's why he's a heathen. Anywho, follow us on Facebook and Instagram to stay up to date on everything we're doing. Listen on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, and about a billion other podcatchers, both good and bad. Follow us on Facebook. I'm sorry, we already did that joke. We're also on Patreon and are heading toward 200 exclusive episodes and commentaries for your $1. Feedback and general nonsense can be lobbed our way via the Hysteria Continues at gmail.com.
Okay, well, let's see if Erik... Joke of the Week gives us loops of laughter.
It's my joke of the week. It's so freaking fantastic.
So I did a big colossal plop today, and I'm sure I did the exact same one yesterday. I had déjà vu.
That's great.
I like it.
Oh, Erik, how long did that one take you to dream up?
About 20 seconds.
Was it like 31 iterations where you finally got it right?
Yeah.
I was thrown on the punchline, Erik, because I thought you were going to say they're in a time poop.
Yeah, you see, I had that as a backup plan as well. Time poop or déjà vu.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm
I'm
all
kind of
about
glad
the
you went with
toilet.
the déjà because it was a little bit more unexpected for me.
Yeah, and classy because it's French.
Yeah, déjà is kind of a classy word, I should say.
Okay, so we haven't got any feedback this time, have we? I don't think.
We don't have feedback, but I will say to you guys, there is a woman I work with who I talked to her about the podcast because she likes these kind of movies, and she started listening. So, hello, Katrina.
Hi, Katrina.
Hi,
Listening
Katrina.
to our show.
Yeah. Fantastic. Welcome aboard. So, okay, well, I guess that just means
Nathan tried to sell us drugs.
I did, but you didn't buy them. So
I was trying to get you into trouble with Katrina.
Oh no, don't worry. I don't think she would think anything about it because I'm innocent.
You are.
Well, that's Erik said you were smuggling 50 pounds of crack down your pants.
50 pounds? No, my crack doesn't weigh 50 pounds. It weighs like, I don't know how much a crack would weigh. You would have to take it off of the butt and put it on a scale. And I really just don't know what the weight of just a crack would be. But it's not 50 pounds, Justin.
Okay, well, arguably a crack wouldn't weigh anything, would it?
Well, I mean, would it? Because is it part of the cleftal horizons?
You see what you started, Erik?
I know. Sorry.
It's part of the cleftals. So, You know what I'm saying, Justin. You know biology.
I do, but yes, it's something for us all to ponder. But
yeah, you've given us a lot to think about, Nathan Johnson.
Yes, and that wasn't my joke, but it's probably time to say what we're covering next time. And I've decided to, as I discussed with you, fine gentlemen, a double bill. From 1978 is The Sister of Ursula, which has a very peculiar method of murder, and the very, very trashy Arabella Black Angel from 1989, I think it was, which has all sorts of interesting things, including, well, you have to watch it, listen to the episode to find out, but if you get a chance to try and watch them before we talk about them. But I think it's going to be an interesting discussion, put it that way.
And I don't think I've seen either one of them. I think I've seen Arabella, but I don't remember. It seems like I would remember it if it's that trashy, but these are two new ones to me, I think.
That's why I'm excited to watch them.
Okay, right. Well, be careful what you wish for.
Yeah.
So, right. Okay, so what are we playing out with, Nathan?
We're going to play out with Kodachrome by Paul Simon.
Why?
Because I like that song.
But, oh, is it in the film?
No.
Okay, fair enough.
Okay.
Well, it has words in it, and the film has words in it, so...
True, I didn't think about that, yeah.
The word connection.
Yeah.
Very good. Okay, right. Well, thank you for listening to The Hysteria Continues, and indeed it does. And we will be back next week with a trip to Italy for some Giallo madness, and plenty more to come. So thank you for listening, and say goodbye to the good people.
Bye.
So long.
Goodbye.
Fare thee well.
It's my birthday, and I ain't gotta pick up the phone.
And indeed you are. Welcome back to The Hysteria Continues.
We're not doing that!